with this session. And I again welcome Mr. Girish Ilka. So Girish, it's all yours, and you can have you can start with your session.
All right.
Sir, Pandit, attendance join
I want let sir.
attendance download करूँगा.
Yes. Yes, Girish, go ahead.
All right. Hello all. So myself Girish, and I have one quick request to you guys. Can like 2-3 I just see some random names here. So if 2-3 guys here, I see Abhinav, Anirudh, Gaurav, Ankur, Bhavna, Nikhil. Can 2-3 guys just unmute whenever I ask some question and just say yeah, so that I would feel that I'm not talking to the walls. Okay. Are we good?
Yes,
Just
sir.
somebody say yeah. All right, cool. So let me tell me once you start seeing me. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir, we can see you.
All right, super cool. Your classes start at 8. That's quite a willpower to start day at 8. Amazing. Okay, so I'll tell a little bit about myself first. So I am 2006 pass out from PICT IT. At our times, I think it was batch of 60. Now it has grown till, I hear it's now 220 now. Good to know. And then after that, I also did my post-graduation in interaction design from National Institute of Design. That's an institute that was set by Nehru in 60s to help India grow in terms of design. So it started with the product design and textile design, but recently it has grown to all the fields by now. And then it has done some iconic work like all our symbols and all our coins and all many big logos. If you see SBI, railways, most of it is designed by NID. So I want to tell you a little story and I start with that. Okay. So 1 second. Can you guys see me? Because I can't see myself here.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, we can.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so whatever fancy titles you're seeing right now, I wanted to rather tell you the original story. So I think in 2002 we had joined PICT, and as not so bright student, I had backlog in. I don't know if you have that subject ACDC. We had that time, and we also had the computer graphics at that time. So we didn't have. I wasn't very bright academic student though, but after my post graduation, a few years later, 2011-12, I've joined Symantec, and in 2012, I did file patent on UI design, which was apparently related with the algorithm in the computer graphics. So this is my message to all the silent middle benchers and all the naughty backbenchers, that just keep pursuing what you're doing, and it will connect back after a few years. Okay, so we'll start with that. Still, I can't see myself. Let me just do one thing. Sachin sir, can you go on mute?
Yes, Girish, tell me.
Okay, I'm not able to see my own
Yeah,
self.
even I think even I am also not able to see you. I think
No,
your
sir.
video camera is off.
No, sir. It's
Nice.
on.
Sir,
It's on.
हाँ
It's on.
दिख रहा है. गिरीश display
Okay.
तो.
Oh, अच्छा, ठीक है फिर. It won't show me, I guess.
नीचे खाली.
No,
That I
even
know.
it should show you also on the Teams screen, but not as the right corner which should appear. So
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. It's first lesson of HCI, I guess. They should, they should redesign it well. I'll go back to my sharing screen. So I'll explain a little bit about the journey. The goal is for all of you to know what is the way to become really the UX designer, what are different pathways that are available, and what generally uh, it takes to become a designer. Okay, so after passing out from PICT, I got a job in small firm called Pero Systems, where I worked for 2 years, but I never was really decent programmer. I was more into UI development, would write a CSS and styling sheets and do the Photoshop work that was needed. And then slowly I realized that I should better take the education in design that would help me in my career. So that made me give the exams for NID and IIT and other stuff. Out of which I really loved the vibe of NID and I went to NID. So that was around 2008 to 2010. I did my postgrad. Then I joined Microsoft as intern, quite exhaustive program. I was there for 8 months, and then later after 2010, I joined Symantec. Then I worked at Pfizer for a brief time. Um, and now currently I'm working at BMC Software from la past 3 years. This is not mentioned here. This is older portfolio. So that's about me. And for you guys who have interest in subject of HCI, they could start pursuing about how to give exams at either IIT or NID, or there are a lot of post-graduation courses in MS outside, which are in HCI. They have more of technical angle though, but those courses are also very well structured. Some of uh, our batchmates, our junior batchmates in PICT have pursued that. And I think Dhruv Damle is working at Facebook as a designer, and then Siata Kalkar is working somewhere. She did her course in SVA, so on and so forth. So it's a decently good field if you have interest. Okay, shall we move ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
All right, so let's move. I'll do one thing. I'm gonna talk about like 3 different projects. Okay, and I will initially start with one project at NID, and then I'll also take you through 2 different projects that in the industry, so that you will understand and how the design process is carried in the industry. All right. So let me start my project that I did at NID. All right. So this was one of the project which we had like 3 or 4 months time to do, but I think I learned immensely in that. So we were asked to work on the how the information exchange happens in the public transit space of Bangalore, and how can we improve the information design if possible. So generally in engineering, we get very narrowed down brief that we want to either build this app or do this program with this constraints and that constraint. But in design, generally briefs are very open. So we would have to really investigate all the data behind it and then start processing it. Okay. So to really understand what information meant for public transit of Bangalore. And by the way, Bangalore is extremely crowded city with a huge population density, and also they have very strong network of BMTC bus service there. Okay, so we wanted to understand the communication system. We wanted to understand all the actions and emotions that are involved in that, and then we wanted to understand the information dissemination strategy, right? How do they understand when the bus is coming? How do they understand when the train is coming? How do they understand how far they have to walk to reach certain place? How do they arrive to the interfaces or interactions in that case? So we did try to put certain mental model about, okay, what all they do to communicate, right? They travel in a group. How do they make a decision to travel? Where are the places where they get confused? What are their audible supports? So if, especially in India, right, uh, people do not just trust what they read. If somebody is sitting in the bus and he wants to get down, he would rather ask the person next to him, "ये stop आया क्या?" Right? So the verbal communication is a lot more prominent in India than a written one. Okay. All right. Then we were just jotting down all the information access points they could have, right? Is it airport, railway station, police chowki, inside the bus, at the workplace, at the home, at the colleges, at the public spaces? Those are the points where they could access the information that they wanted, and there are different mediums. Okay, I'll quickly jump to next slide, so it would be more fun for you. So we identified 4 different points in Bangalore where we wanted to go and see that how people are interacting, right? There were huge maps which were put up where people were trying to understand how the roadmap is, where they could take the bus stop and where they could land and where they could switch the bus, so on and so forth. And even if you see the stops, there is like very discrete a very heterogeneous kind of information written at all the stops. It's not very consistent. Okay, so BMTC had like 3 kinds of buses. Or regular buses, they have new AC buses called Vayu. Then they have all these airport ka buses going, which is Vayu Vajra. So all this information, right? It's very discrete. Uh, so we went to all those places, spoke to probably 30 to 40 people, try to understand how they really do it. Then we thought, why don't we make a map which is consistent across, which is readable across, and which is something BMTC could actually give it to people. Okay, so one second. So what we thought is we'll go to BMC and try to really bring the original data. So we went and we asked them, um, can you give us all the list of bus stops? What they gave is they gave us the Excel sheet of all the bus stop with the marked latitude and longitude. Okay, so we took that file, we came back home, and then we tried to plot the data on the GPS visualizer so that we could make more accurate maps and better maps. But once we did plot the data, we felt that um, it was very congested, right? The legends were not legible. We couldn't read the data. We couldn't. Uh, the map that is plot in the screen, it's not really usable. Right? Then we went back to the illustrator. We build our own map where what we try to do is put only the data that is relevant for that stop and still try to show all the possible ways there. And what we thought is, why don't we do a schematic map like how London YouTube has a map, right? Where it just, there is a mapping at the bottom which will tell you the station and how much it's going to cost you, right? So we did like build really, design really good map, and then we did put that on actual places. So some people did pay attention, some people didn't bother at all. Then some people were really keen to understand what that map is. There is every kind of persona that exists in the open space, right? And once that is done, uh, luckily at that time we had this something called a tracking device at NID. So what we did is we just um, we gave people certain action to do, right? We showed them map, and what it does is um, it tracks your eyeball, right? If I gave you this map and asked you to go from certain place A to B and put the camera on, it uh, it tracks how your eye movement is, which information you are reading, how long you are staying there. Larger the circle is, larger time you have spent reading that information. So after testing with 4-5 different people, we realized one most prime mistake that we did in that, right? So in our map, if I show you back, where did it go? Yeah, in our map, we missed that ugly big title called "You Are Here." So a lot of people were searching where they are in this map, right? And also we were trying to see that how they really are able to understand the schematic map or not. So they were able to understand, and also there's one more thing. This is generally which is done in IT also for a lot of consumerish products, right? For Facebook or for Google, they do try to see that given this data, where people, what thing people see the most and which thing they see the first. So that's kind of heat map where we would realize where people are uh, focusing for the most of the time. Is video rendering clearly?
Yes, yes.
All right, cool. So yeah, we did that. And just one principle I want to tell, and this is about the design that I'm talking, right? So doesn't matter what design you do, when you actually put it out in the industry, right? You never know how it's going to be used. Be it you design anything, you design handkerchief, you design something else, right? Uh, you design it for one purpose, but then how actually it's going to be used, we never have it in our hand. So it's always good to uh, put it to test outside and then get the feedback and then redesign again. And that's quite an iterative process. And that's true with any software as well. We design it with a certain intention, even if, especially in the consumerish products, right? You never know how it's going to be really used outside. So if you still see, for example, let's just take WhatsApp. If you see that in the rural area, nobody types and responds. They still just use it for forwards or reading the data and sending the data, stuff like that. Nobody really types and texts them. Okay, so that's a purpose. So overall, user testing is immensely important in
Yes,
design.
Girish. I would like to add some point over here.
Okay.
During the course of HCI, we have recently taken one assignment from all the students called as Jugaad. And
Oh,
the Jugaad is exactly on the similar lines that when the product is designed for a particular purpose, but people make use of it for another purpose also.
yes.
So
True.
which is beyond the control of the designer also. And sometimes so we ask all students to observe such things which were actually supposed to do some other work,
Oh,
and those
yes.
designs are or those products after usage of that particular thing are getting utilized for heavily utilized for some other stuff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how people are doing it. So I think you also
Yeah.
have gone through some designs of Jugaad. I have suggested you to. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's really good to know. Once we start observing, we really realize importance of this, and we are a little bit ignorant about all the small things about how they are designed and why they are designed in a certain way. But that's all right. We just need to open our eyes to understand that more. So yeah, we did work a little bit more, and then we were called to design um, design the maps for Bangalore International Airport. They recently had started the Vayu Vajra services of buses. So we did do that. So even if you today, if you go there at the at the desk at the Bangalore airport, you will find a small pamphlet they give for the Vayu Vajra buses. That was our classroom project in 2010. Unfortunately, I don't have that map here with me right now, but yeah, you should get it at the airport. But yeah, we did a lot of things there. We also tried to see if a digital kiosk is useful there and what could work if we put the board out there, how people could map where the buses are to where they want to go and stuff like that. So it's very decently efficient system they have got. So I'll take pause here a little bit. Okay. Um, and before we really start to talk about any projects in industry, I just want to uh, open your thinking for some of the things. Okay, just see this as some warm-up exercise. Okay, um, are you guys able to see the screen? Somebody say yes.
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 Yes, sir.
All right, all right, all right. So I'll talk about like very small things, may be relevant, may not be relevant, but this will just help you connect with the world. Okay. Have you seen ever the things which have like not changed over the years, right? For example, the plate that we eat in, or the spoon, or probably in last 100 years, the concept of safety pins haven't been changed because they are really, really useful, and the concept around it has not changed. The need of food has been there always, and then once we slowly started understanding how our thumb works, then probably like 2000, 3000, 5000 years back, somebody designed the idea of spoon. And still the concept and design of the spoon, it's still the same. It's a universal design. It did not change over so many years. There are a lot many things like that, but I think this stayed in my mind. And if you see any other things, right, uh, the way we reach from one place to another. Earlier we had horses, then we had vehicles. Now we have even much smarter objects to move around. We have trains and flights and whatnot. Uh, and if there are in all other types, right? How the way we communicate. Earlier we had these kabuters, then the letters, and then we have mobiles and everything now. So there's so many things which have changed, but there are so many things which are still constant. The design is constant. Uh, for example, the idea of chair, the the idea of a way we want to sit, right? The human body which want to rest on something. The idea of chair is still constant. So there are a lot of things which are constant as well in design. Okay. So there's a second concept I want to talk very little bit about. This term comes from the product design. Okay, the term is affordance. I'll tell you what it means. We have all these water bottles that we drink water every day. If you have noticed its cap, it's dakkan. So if you see its shape is always circular, right? And why it's circular? Did you ever think about it? Why it's circular? Somebody just say yes or no. Even no is fine.
So no thought was given for that.
All right, all right. Okay, so the thing is, by default, right? Uh, whenever we see a circle, the default action around that is to rotate. If it's a square or a rectangle, then we might move it like horizontally. But when it's a circle, then nobody has to tell anyone that this is to rotate. We don't have to educate user that what we need to do around it. It's very obvious that since it's a circle, the default action is to rotate. All right. Okay. So similarly, if I see the physical objects, right? If you see the switches, how they are designed, if it's a knob, you will rotate. If it's a switch, there is a vertical rectangular slot with a button which you will move up and down. If there is like circular button with a bulge, then only option you have is to push. So this is a physical affordance. And in a very similar way, slowly the elements in the interface, user interface in the digital space are also evolving. If you see there is a slider, then nobody has to tell the user that you could move that slider from left to right, because shape of it is such that user would immediately understand that, oh yeah, you need to slide. Even if you notice something like if you open Amazon, there is that button is always yellow where you want to either add to cart or you want to buy. Right? There is a reason behind it. So if you put it a gray, it's not very inviting. But if you put the yellow button, then it's always attracting and it's saying that, yeah, please do come and click. Please do come and click. So those are those are small pieces of what affordance means. Okay. Now I will move quickly. There are some designs which could not be evolved over the times, which is very itching actually. If you see any remote control, right? If you see any remote control, uh, you give it to any user for first time. Doesn't matter how tech savvy they are, how well educated they are. They always struggle to map uh, the remote control with the UI, and that's a constant problem, right? For first time users especially. Uh, Anytime you give a remote control to user, they do struggle with the mapping the actions on remote with what they want to do and what they want to execute. So that's something called as a cognitive load in design, and that's where we try to minimize that. Uh, Probably these are recently evolved okayish. If you use Amazon Prime or something, the remote is quite simple, and then uh, if you do the actions, it does what you want to do on the interface. So that I think that's one degree of improvement here. But yeah, there is a still struggle in that space. Okay. Um, from here, I'll just want to move to one more thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I think you are right now. It is 2020, right? I don't even know if you have seen this in these things. Uh, So there's a very famous Sony Walkman from 2080 till it exists in 2001. But in 2001, there was something which was a breakthrough launch of iPod, which broke very lot many norms in the industry, and they established themselves as the pioneers in the way people understand and listen to music. And that was very surprising to many of us. And I tell you reason why. If you see this device, the screen and the way to navigation, right? They have used the dial pad as a navigation. And there is no other way to navigate the list. Okay, there are buttons and to select and move forward and backward, but uh, for the navigation, the only way is if you want to scroll the whole list, only way is to use the dial. And I quite wonder sometimes how did it work? And uh, we realize it after some time that there is no other option to do it, and that's why people really it's a first time effort to understand the product, but once you understand, then you are hooked to it. So that was quite a breakthrough design of that time. I think iPod is, I mean, it's known for listening music lately. Nobody has to really make people understand that. And also the interface changed over the years, but yeah, that was quite an iconic design of that time. Also, I'll move to the next small topic. So again, I don't know how many of you have seen all those phones before 2007. We had all these clunky phones with the big dial pad at the bottom and click, 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 and you will see it's impacting on the screen, and it was quite difficult to navigate. Some probably, I think HP had this screen, touch screen with the stylus, but I don't think still it was very smooth. Okay, and in 2007, suddenly we had this launch of iPhone, which changed the entire smartphone business within a year. So they moved from this whole uh, buttons at the bottom and screen at the top kind of UI to they just increased the screen size fully, and they they just decided that we will use our finger to navigate and scroll and select and everything. And that was quite a design for that time, which forced all other brands to change their idea of what the smartphone is, and uh, that's it. That changed the way everything works in the phone suddenly, right? That's a huge impact in terms of design. So, and while designing also, they had very different constraints. I think they said that we want a phone which has only one button, and we don't want a stylus. We want it to be accessible by finger. And for that times, I think it was quite a revolutionary idea. And then suddenly, uh, so my thought is this, that uh, what's touchscreen designed for first time? No, I think it was invented way much before that. In 1990s, Microsoft had all these touch surfaces. Was the, any idea of smartphone like internet, mobile network, uh, touch as a touch screen, or any other thing? Was it not there before? It was always there. But I think it took a visionary like Steve Jobs and people coming together and tried to put all the use cases together with the right functionality and right product, which made a dent in the world in 2007 to change the way how mobile should work. And later we see all kind of smartphones are similar now. Now we don't see any leapfrog change in the evolution of mobile, but more or less they are based on the similar concept. So again, for any idea to realize and come to the real world, it has to put all these segments of use case, then the product design, the marketing, and the sales, everything. It all has to come together for that to work successfully in the market. All right. Are we good so far?
Yes, sir.
Somebody?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. All right, cool. You don't have to call me sir, by the way. um, by the way, there's one small point I want to talk about. That's a golden ratio. So what is golden ratio? Golden ratio is nothing but just the proportion of one side to another. And this becomes easy when you start designing. Okay, so basically a ratio between A to basically uh, from side to the horizontal side to vertical side, that ratio should be 1.6. So that this ratio is based on Fibonacci series, but how do I say this? The way nature has built or the way our body's been designed, there are certain ratio and proportions to which our body resonates really well. For example, you must have stayed in different spaces, right? But there are only quite fewer rooms where you find there is like right amount of light, right amount of echo to the sound, and it just right amount of ventilation, so that you feel more comfortable in that space versus some other spaces. So there are certain ratios with where our body resonates well, and if you see the examples, right? Even our human bodies are designed for in the golden ratio. Even our height to width, or even if you check our facial structure, right? Uh, when the ratio between our eyes to our nose, if it's 1.6, then then that human structure looks the most beautiful one. Even if you see our hand, right? Can you see me in the video? From our shoulders to elbow, and from our elbow to our forearm. So this is 1 and this is 1.6, right? Uh, so that's by nature, that's how the ratio is seen as the most beautiful one. And that is successfully used in a lot of designs. Even the Apple logo, if you see, or the Pepsi logo, if you see, the Twitter, and then even while designing the website, if somebody has to think about what should be the proportions from a panel to the navigation window, then sometimes we choose the golden ratio for that. Okay. All right. Then I'll move to the next slide. Even the Google is defined on the Google golden ratio. Lot many logos, lot many interfaces. Even if you see your phone, the aspect ratio is our golden ratio. Okay. And there's one little topic I want to touch, the information design. This has been my favorite topic. I wouldn't spend like way too much time on this, but probably if somebody who pursues HCI would end up pursuing this topic as well in later their life. So information design, and why I tell you why it's important also. Probably this would help you in the future. Okay, why we need more visuals in the design. Can you see the numbers here? They're just the sales details of last probably 3 years, 2012, 13, 14. Can somebody quickly tell me which is the highest number here? Is someone on the call? Can just somebody tell me which is the highest number in all these 3 columns?
The 26,559.
Okay,
559.
and
30,000.
yeah,
So August.
Wow.
yeah, right.
2014, 30,134.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So 13 May. And can somebody just tell me the lowest number in this?
February. Sorry, April.
Okay, April when? Oh, the negatives are also lowest, right?
2004.
So October. October.
Which year?
48.
March 2012.
Well, October
March
14.
2000.
March 2000.
Wouldn't minus 17,000 would be lower than minus 48? Yes, right? Or am I mistaken here?
Yes.
Right. So in that case, would it be 2012 March, right? Minus 17,000, that was the lowest number. So when I ask you to scan any data, right, you would have to like really go through all the rows and scan the data and understand. Right? Instead, when we have to represent this kind of data, we probably would rather use the simple bar graphs. And here if I ask somebody which is the highest point, you could very quickly see and say, oh, okay, the third bar of Coca-Cola is 83%, that's highest. And if I ask somebody lowest, what is lowest? Can you tell me here? Lowest number?
Pepsi Light.
Anybody? Yeah, Pepsi Light.
Pepsi
So
Light
that's
10%.
yeah. So basically, yeah. So basically, I want to tell is in your future, right? If one of the geeky product manager asks you why you want to use a graph versus numbers, then you could probably give this example. So yeah, we do really use a lot of visualizations so that it's much easy for us to understand the graphs. Okay. I mean, understand the data. We don't have to scan through so much, and we in one snapshot we could provide better relativity and so on and so forth. Okay. So I'll move to the next slide and I'll tell you one of the really interesting maps that I found. Okay. So if you see, this is a map which represents the different railway stations between Paris to Lyon. And if you see on the x-axis, there are different stations, Paris, Montereau, La Roche, and Dijon, and then Macomb and Thénloin. And if you see on the y-axis, those are your hours, right? The 24 hours are plotted against the distance, basically the stations. So if you see this graph, imagine something like between Pune and Mumbai, there are so many trains that travel, and there are stations in between. You have Lonavala, you have Karzat, you have Kalyan, you have Navi Mumbai. Then you reach to Dadar, then you reach to uh, VT. That's a final destination. And there are so many trains. And if I have to plot all the data together, right? If I have to plot all the data together, then, and if I put it in the numbers, probably that would be around 200 to 300 tables. But then when I put it here, within one graph, I see most of the information that is needed. The slant of the line tells me that how fast or slow the train is. If I have to change the route somewhere, if I have to wait and pick up the another train after a few hours, any use case, right? Be it any use case from user's perspective, they could pursue this. So I showed this graph only to tell you that the best use case of graph is you provide most of the data with the least of the lines. That's the best quality of graph. Okay. All right, I'll just move to next. This is also one of my favorite old graph. So what you see here is, this is basically Napoleon Bonaparte when he went to invade Russia, right? Uh, this graph talks about how the um, one parameter is used in different space and times and uh, multiple variables to show a simple story in just one stroke. So what you see here is the depth of this line, or height of this line, represents the number of troops Napoleon Bonaparte had as he moved forward. And he did visit, this black line represent the number of rivers that they met on their way. And as they moved ahead, there was a poison in the river also at many places. As they moved ahead, the temperatures started decreasing, and that started affecting the health of the troops, and uh, the numbers started reducing. So by the time Napoleon Bonaparte really reached Moscow, his troops were so small in the numbers that he couldn't win. But yeah, this graph tells whole of this story with all the details in least number of lines. So that's one of my graphs. Does anybody want to say anything? All right. Okay. I just thought I'll warm up everyone a little bit and then we'll move back. So I'll come back to our original focus here. I'll start with one of the industry project that I did with the Pfizer. This is just so that you have idea of how design works in actual industry. Okay. So one project I was asked to design in Pfizer was integrated payment strategy. I won't bombard you with a lot of details, and I quickly tell you what that idea was. Does anyone use the bank account to transfer money? At least professors might be using here. So you use the net
Only
banking.
for the first 7 days we can use it. After that, there is no cash in the account.
So even for 7 days, you must be using net banking for something, right?
Yes, yes,
Where
yes.
where you transfer the money from one bank to another bank. So we were asked to build that UI where we transfer money from one account to another, and this is around 2015. Okay, uh, and we wanted to do it for all the banks in the US. There is one common company which takes care of all the transactions across. So I was working for Pfizer then, and we were asked to design the payment strategy. So even in India, if you see that screen where you transfer money, there are like four things which are very prominent: from, to, amount, and date when you want to transfer. You want to do it now or you want to do it scheduled payment. Okay. And there is very strong reason why it is like that. So something like payment transfer, people could use very different modalities. They could use mobile, they could use web, they could use iPad or tablet, or they could use something else. So across all these devices, we wanted that functionality look exactly similar. That makes us realize that we have to reduce our functionality to exact 3 to 4 to 5 fields, which is consistent across all these, right? And that's how we designed that interface in First Go. And generally, whenever you design the concept, it's much better to put it out. Again, like I said before, you have to put it out and test it across the users. So we did build a concept, the clickable prototype, what you see here, that worked on the phone. And then it's in gray. It's not the refined version of prototype. So we, since customers were in US, we took that to US. We hired around like 10, 15 professionals whom we asked to come and just gave them the exercise of completing this navigation. You have to add a biller, you have to send the money, you have to save the bill, you have to see, and you have to track back if you need to. So things like that. So what we did is there is okay, let me zoom in. So there is a concept of usability rooms, okay, which is famous as in, which is very standard, even in India and in US, where we as observers sit in one room, and in another room there is only one person who is facilitator, who is telling user that how to use the product and what to do, but letting them explore the idea of product. So, and meanwhile, we keep taking notes of how do they really use it, and we ask them to think aloud so that we understand how they're using it or not. So let me click here. So we did build a user testing report after that. Let me show it quickly. So I'm sliding through it very quickly, but whatever we built, we really had to check it back that users understand that buttons with the functionalities very clearly. When I say select contact, what do they understand? When I say send money, how do they understand? When I say due amount, due date, balance, all these words in the context, do they understand it correctly? Do they understand my receipt correctly, right? So all these things, do they understand how to select the date on the calendar correctly? So all these things are thoroughly tested again and again before really building the UI, right? So we had all these. Oh, there was one more interesting feature of if you are really in hurry and you want to pay the bill, can you just take a photo and it will use the OCR to scan it and then pay the bill automatically, right? This is something even in India we have it for credit cards, but in US they have this concept of uh, paying the bills in the credit. They don't pay the bills immediately. They have this credit system for like really long day. And there's one more really funny thing which is surprising. So 40% of US still uses a checkbook to pay the money. Somehow in India, we had these products from Infi and Wipro where we skipped that step maybe, and we had like really good functional financial products in early 2000. But yeah, even in 2020, US, a lot of uh, big portion of US still uses check to pay the bills. All right, so I'll move back. So once the user research is done, right? Where were we? Yes. So once the concept testing is done and then user research is done, then we detail out the whole flow again. And yeah, we detail out and then we start putting the visual designs on the top of it. So the whole idea is, and the challenge also is, this has to work on all the screens of Android, iOS, and other operating systems if there are. So the design has to be consistent and work for all the devices and all the modalities. So yeah, we did the visual design. And depending upon that, and you're thinking about your brand, then you build the guidelines. And that's something becomes very important. If you notice uh, all the things, right? Facebook has its own guideline. If you use Microsoft product, it has its own visual design guidelines, and they become backbone of your visual design structure for your product. Okay, there's a lot of thought put into that. All right. So just to tell you broadly, there are three fields in design. One is visual design, another is interaction design, and third is user research. So depending upon your career interest, people generally pick one of them. Okay, I think we are good. Is it too fast, too slow, boring, okayish? Somebody just say yes or no. I can't see anyone, which feels very weird. Hello, sir. Are you still there?
Yes, sir, it's going at a good pace. Yeah, we can get it.
All right. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you one of the projects that I love the most. Okay. So by the way, this picture you are seeing, this is our usability session for semantic. What you see is one person has been asked to test the product and another is facilitator. And we always have this one-way mirror, like in the what do you say, detective series, you would see police interrogating in one-way mirror room, right? These are very similar to that. Okay. Yeah, I'll come to one of the project that I liked most before. Okay. Share the screen. All right, can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Or there is this, okay, sorry. Okay, so at Semantic as responsible. So by the way, have you guys heard about Semantic? Does anybody know Semantic? There's this tall building in Baner. Some of you might have seen.
I've seen the buses of Semantic.
Okay. Do you know what kind of product Semantic builds? Does anybody know? So they are famous for,
I think
bye-bye.
Norton is one of them.
Yeah, not an antivirus, but then antivirus is just their 20% of business. The rest of their business is into storage, data backup, archival, enterprise vault, so on and so forth. Some of you might end up working there. So you better have some knowledge about it. Okay. So one of the product I was working was called Data Insight. And what Data Insight did was uh, for all the unstructured data, right? There are two types of data. I mean, I'll I'll talk very vaguely here. I'm not very good with the programming or real computer science stuff, but I'll talk very vague. So you just bear with me for some time. So for all unstructured data, there is really no database, right? There is no SQL or Oracle. Probably imagine something like you are in PICT and you would have to share certain files with each other, the Word documents, the PPTs, or some other files, right? And you have a common space where you share all these. And similarly, we have the same unstructured data in many financial institutes like banks, right? They have this place for repository where people put their data, but then all of that is extremely well regulated. Okay. So for example, if it's a document that is related with the bank, then it has to go through certain steps of approval, which means only certain people will have read and write access, and they will go from one person to another in certain very processed way. So to track that, there is a product that was built called Semantic Data Insight, and which would, on the left hand side, if you see, it will show you all the folders which are like commonly shared and all the users who are active on those folders, right? This becomes really important in cases where there is a there is a there are probably files related with patents, or there are files related with the new marketing strategies, or there are files related with the salary and finance. So these are extremely well protected files, and then they have very restricted access of who can read it, who can write it, who can edit it, who can delete it, things like that. So that whole uh, uh, audit logs are shown in SDI. Okay, so in this same product, while we were working, and by the way, this is one small note. Designer always works with the product managers. The product managers who go in real market and fetch the idea of what users might want, and it's between the product manager and designer to sit together and visualize and finalize design for it. And then there is the rest of huge engineering team which actually executes it. But there is the same amount of work that goes into uh, taking requirements and building design. Okay, so there was an idea between PM and me that why don't we try to build certain graph or certain visual where it tells users how your system is. So I'm going to talk a little bit of technical stuff. So just do focus and do bear with me for a few minutes. So imagine what the dots that you see here on the right hand side. Imagine that as the users. Okay. For example, we have like 220 students right now on the call. Imagine each one of you is one dot here, okay? And if you have formed the groups for different subjects, and if you are sharing files among yourselves, then the line is formed between two users, okay? For example, if Anirudh is sharing one file with Tanay, and then Tanay is sharing another file with Someshwar, then that forms one line between them, okay? And if there are more files and there is more sharing, then these dots start coming closer, okay? So these dots start coming closer, and that tells overall that, okay, how the groups are formed based on what files they are sharing with each other. All right. So this was the overall idea behind it. And then this is basically Closet Newman's algorithm on which we designed this graph. And then it did made its space in the actual UI, where we did build the UI and then provided the drill down on click of every dot, and you could select the group, or you could select one point and see which user we are talking, where it belongs, which group he belongs, right? And this data tells you about, like, probably if I have to represent the same data in tabular form, it would take like hundreds and 200s a table, some degree of searching and sorting, and still I wouldn't establish how the relationship between the user and data, which I can do here in one snapshot, right? So that was the core idea. Click here, and I click here. And I think we filed a patent around this called social networking analysis, along with my two teammates, Michael Hart and Sally. So yeah, that was something I felt which was very interesting, because I do remember I did not understand the concept of computer graphics when I was studying, but then after a few years, I just realized how design and your knowledge of computer science come together to build something as useful and meaningful like this. So that was very satisfying experience. All right, I'll move back. So this was one, and then I think I showcased. Oh yeah, so this was there was my internship at Microsoft. I quickly walk you through it. So in Microsoft, I was asked to work with the. Okay, this can't be zoomed. I was asked to work in the Skype web team, and it was around 2010 when cloud was not so prominent for the consumer products. It was prominent in AWS, but not so much for consumer products. So whole idea was we were asked to explore the opportunities for taking Microsoft Office to the cloud. So how could we really do that? How could we have the meetings more online? And how could we have like all the Word files saved online, and then how can we communicate? So our idea was, if I select the text, then I should immediately then and there should be able to email or chat around that text. Or one more thought I had was, if there are people, for example, imagine something like there are 3 or 4 students who are working together on the one document, right? You are probably building a project document together. There are a 50-page document which has sections where different students own different sections. So there are 3-4 users. It would show up on the right-hand side navigational bar. If I click on any one of them, it might tell me which all sections she or he did right. on which pages, right? So things like that. So there were a lot of explorations, but it was just the small um, blue sky projects we had. Okay. So yeah, what time it is? 9:11. Okay. All right then. I think that's all I wanted to tell. Uh, if anybody wants to ask anything, talk anything, that is, I hear a little bit of background noise.
Yes, Girish, thank you very much for this wonderful session. You mentioned a lot many things, and we were expecting the same. We because we as the teachers and the students, we are always talking about HCI, but what are the future prospects? How the work in industry is done? Does it have any prospects? What kind of things or products are generally designed? Because we normally end up using the products, but what thought process or what methodology has gone behind that to come up with that particular product with respect to HCI was also very nicely explained.
Oh, thank
So
you
yes,
so
very
much.
thankful to you.
Yes.
And
All
any
right.
students
Thank you,
don't have any
Girish.
questions can raise their questions, please.
Thank you, Girish.
Yep.
Excuse me, sir. I had a
Yeah.
question for Girish, sir. Can I
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Vinay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, good morning, Girish, sir. Actually, I was just wondering. I mean, you said like when you were working on so many projects, especially with the Bangalore information transfer,
Yeah.
project was concerned, you had to do a lot of research and a lot of time went into that. So, on an average, how much time do you spend on researching for going in depth of the problem statement where HCI problems are concerned?
Hey, so I'm very glad you asked me a very nice question. So, um, generally, process is like this, uh, which I'll explain. For mostly in all the engineering assignments, right? We have we are given very narrowed down brief. For example, you will be asked to build an app for probably, let's just say, a ticket booking system for railways. Just assume for that. So we immediately start working on it. But when you come to design, first thing we've been taught is to go back on your brief, right? You have to really go and understand how the ticketing reservation system works. So, to answer very clearly to your question, if I have 1 year to build a product, I will spend 6 months in research and design and 6 months in execution. And generally, that's
Oh,
a similar thing in industry as well. So there are designers and product managers who keep working in the background in the user space. They go to fields, take the requirements, build the prototype, take it back, right? So yes, uh, the same time you would take for development, that's the same amount of time I would spend for research and design. Did I answer your question?
yes, sir. I got a pretty, yeah, convincing answer.
All right,
Thank you.
all right. Hey, there is one small
Hello,
thing I
sir.
wanted
I
to.
had a question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
Uh, yeah. Sir, when you're designing a graph, like let's say you had designed for the map or for the Bangalore International Airport, how important a role do Edward Tufte's graphical heuristics play, or are they not given that much of a priority?
Okay, my first question: when and how did you hear about Edward Tufte?
Sir, so I had done this course for applied data science. So the way you do data visualization, you have to manage those heuristics, which is why it is important, which is how I know about it.
All right, I am so glad that somebody from engineering has spoke about Edward Tufte. He is a bible on the information design. Yes, especially in our field, right? If you take HCI as your major, information design becomes uh, one of your integral subjects out of three. Okay, one is interface design, another is information design, and third is user research. So yes, we've been taught that project or that subject Hey, there is some background noise again. Do you have
Yes.
somebody near?
Excuse me, Pandey sir. I think you're
Oh,
unmuted.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's
Yeah.
clear. Hey, so yes, the all the principles that are mentioned in the Tough Days book, they are at least to the designers and the people I know, they follow it very religiously. They are very sound.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to ask. Like whether it was a purely theoretical or it's actually practiced
No,
in
it is. It
practice.
is practical. It is in practice. It is very much in practice. So a lot of things, especially when I read newspapers, right, there is a lot of question on integrity, okay, of the
Hmm.
graphs. The numbers that presented on the graph, but the diagrams they show on the graphs, they are very disconnect. They blow it out of proportion. So very
Yeah,
bad. Uh, but when it comes to design in all the enterprise products, we are very honest and very conscious about all those decisions.
that's great. Thank you. Thank you for your answer, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Great question. Hey, okay. By the way, one more data point I wanted to tell you. So I mentioned this before, and I mentioned this again. So in case you guys have not found any great interest in what you're doing or have questions around your career and stuff like that, please just do follow your interests. Uh, pursue it with some certain focus, okay? Um, things will later come back together. If you have interest in sports, if you have interest in some other things, if you have not found your interest yet, probably you will, but keep that focus alive. Keep doing things that you like, and things will connect back in the future. Okay. On that note, I want to give a little bit more data points. Um, for the field of design, which is decently uh, like people know about design these days, even as a career. So there are different institutes that are there. We have NID, we have IIT. In Pune, we have MIT Institute of Design. We have Symbiosis Institute of Design. Then also there are good amount of courses in US. We have SVA, School of Visual Arts. We have Boston School. We have probably, I forgot the names, Washington School. There is a Rhode Island School. So there are lot many courses which are available outside. And if you start pursuing, and it does take some amount of work, okay? For example, if you are right now you're in third year, and if you are doing some building some small websites here and there, you are building any small creative things that adds up to your portfolio. And generally, the way to enter all these institutes is you build your portfolio. You they generally have their one test, one written test, and then one studio test where you go and actually do perform some. You're given a brief and you asked to work on it, and then there is a process of portfolio screening. It's almost a 8 to 9 months process that you have to go through, and then you will end up to your desired school. And I think for any other streams as well, right? Even for MBA or MTech, I think it's a similar. You have to work almost for a year to reach the best institute that you want to. And I would highly recommend not to fall for one job. Just consider doing post graduation. It might bring wonders to your life. All right. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. Anything else, guys? And one small data
Since
point.
yeah, most of these students have actually answered or got their answers for their respective questions, and students, you two most important instructions for you. I am very sure that you must have liked it, and you must have
So his voice is broken.
uh, okay.
Couldn't hear.
yeah, there would be a quiz and a feedback form for the students to to appear for, and that is most important. So that will be shared to you within a day or so, and you are supposed to revert back to that. So if you have any queries to that, request Girish sir to please share his email ID. Maybe the students can actually reach out to you, and if they have any queries, they can solve it. Most probably, in the next on the coming Tuesday, there would be one hands-on session for all of you, all the students that you are requested to attend in the similar fashion like today. So thank you very much, Girish. So anything that you are expecting? Do you need a photograph or something,
Photograph of what?
students? So Manish sir, are you there?
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
that would it
Yes,
help.
sir.
Okay, so Manish sir, I think already has taken the snap of all the parts.
Yeah, that would.
So that
Sir,
we that can be shared with.
Madam and Rasna Madam and Pandey sir, if you put camera on, then we will take combine one photograph.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible?
It is possible.
Okay.
Students, you are also requested to turn your camera on.
Okay. So I will take after 1 minute. So those students are started their camera. So I will take.
That is Sachin sir, you have grown mustache.
Kuch to, yeah, I think when we met last time, it wasn't there, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
during this lockdown, many things have changed. So I lost a lot of hair, and the compensation is done in the mustache. So yes, it happens.
Okay. So I will take a screenshot. Be ready. Okay. Thank you all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Girish. So we'll stay connected, and we'll again going. If possible, we would have some in detail, some specific session if required based on student demand.
Right. All right. Absolutely.
It work out. So it was very nice, and I'm very happy to see my alumni. He's after so many years and coming back to the department, and he's on the other side of the uh, session today. So generally, the students are. So this is good thing that my alumni is there, and they would go to final year. They would certainly become alumni. They would have their excellent academics career after that career, and I want them also to come back and get connected with the department, get connected with the college. So that was very nice thing, and I'm really very happy.
Sir, this is
Thank you so much,
especially
sir.
those subject we are teaching, and they are that right now they are in the expert for that one in the industry. So it's a different type of feeling.
Yes, yes,
Right,
yes.
Girish?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean,
Okay,
it's
good.
liberating
Thank you.
one
Excellent
second.
session, Girish.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, students, you have another session from 9 to 10. So we have got delayed by almost 24 minutes. So you are instructed to join those sessions and stay connected over there, and your other session will continue. So your attendance will be is already recorded, and if you answer those quiz answers correctly, then only your attendance would be marked. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you, Girish. Thank you all the students for joining it. So we'll meet again.
Right, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Happy